Hello and welcome to Stories, the True and the Fictional. As you can tell from the slightly different style of music, this is going to be a slightly different style of episode. It's something we call Story Chat, where we sit down with an author, a filmmaker, or any kind of storyteller really, and talk to them about their life and their work in a real fun and laid back way. So sit back, relax. Unless you're going for a jog, then run faster. It's story time. Hello and welcome to Stories, the True and the Fictional. We have a wonderful guest for you today. His name is Mo. That's all I've been told.
Yeah.
So to start us off, just want to tell us about yourself, Mo.
Well, let's kick it off. I'm actually Egyptian. I'm currently based in the UK, trying to build a company and trying to live the entrepreneurial life. Had a couple of good experiences so far in life, but one of the biggest, which is what brings me here today, is just having the opportunity back in 2020, mid-pandemic, to just get down and write. When I wrote and self-published my own book. Here today. I'm just happy to be with you guys.
Cool. Awesome. So a tradition we have here on the show is we like to ask people 5 icebreaker questions. Feel free to pass on anyone if you just don't know, but it's just for a bit of a laugh, just to break the ice. But the first one is, if you could get rid of one thing in the world, what would it be?
First thought that came into my head is just poverty. I think when you consider the amount of people who are living under the line of poverty, or even not, just struggling throughout life, if I had the power of removing one thing, that would definitely be it. It's just an easy answer, yeah.
Yeah, well, it'd be a wonderful thing, wouldn't it?
I'm sure what is your answer though to that question? That I found that interesting.
It's tough because I've never actually had to, I ask these questions, but I never actually have to think about it. But like as a kid, I'd say lasagna, but but, I don't know. Can I get back to you?
Sure. But yeah, it would be poverty from my side. Yeah.
All right. Next one is something on your bucket list.
Just to be relevant to this conversation, I would say it's writing a fiction. I've always wanted to write. My dream was I've always been inspired by the likes of J.K. Rowling and just all those great fantasy works. And when I always thought about writing, which was something I thought about for years and years, I always thought I would be writing a fiction. I'd be writing a fantasy. However, when I got to writing, I just had at that point in time, just something else popped up, and I felt like I had something else I needed to let out, and that's when I wrote a leadership memoir. But to me, the one thing I still want to do, one thing I was supposed to get back to it last year, but then writing sometimes gets a bit delayed. But that's one thing I know that for sure I want to do before I die, and I'm hoping I do it a lot earlier than when I'm 70, 80. So. Or maybe a lot earlier. I wouldn't know, but that would be one thing. And then, if I were to say something which is more common, I want to do skydiving and all those things. But the bigger thing, the more relevant item on a bucket list would be to write a fantasy that would change lives just as much as a lot of the current fantasies I grew up reading did to my life and to plenty of others.
Well, it's a definitely achievable thing. So.
Think so. It should be. It is. Yeah.
Be optimistic. You can do it.
Yeah. The idea of writing itself. So I've always thought that writing and publishing a book was impossible. So just breaking that barrier makes it believable for you. So it's just now breaking the barrier of can I actually write a fiction or not, or can I write fantasy? But just the idea of writing now is something that's doable. So you just one step at a time, I guess.
Yeah, that's it. All right, moving on. Greatest sitcom.
That was tough. It's kind of tough, but I think I would go for Seinfeld.
Yeah, well, that's the common answer. That's a safe answer.
I love Seinfeld. A lot of people don't get it though. Like from at least from my group of common friends, I always find people who find it a bit weird.
Yeah,
But I love Seinfeld. I think I think it's brilliant. Yeah, it's just brilliant.
yeah,
Yeah.
good stuff. All right, now for the crazy one. Do you have a zombie apocalypse plan?
uh, when I think about it, I've never really been in like a real fight in my life. So I think
Yeah,
and only very recently have I went with my coworkers or co-mates. We did pigeon shooting, and we did axe throwing just the other week. And me hitting the target was not something that like people would really want to see because it wasn't really happening that often. So I'd assume I'd not be really good at fighting. So probably my plan would just be staying with people that know how to hit a target if needed.
yeah,
But yeah, like I don't think I'd be. I mean, if I train really well, I think I'd do well. I'm really good at online games, so I enjoy um, shooting games and the likes. But turns out in reality, I'm not as good as I am gaming. So yeah, probably not. I wouldn't go out there, I guess.
yeah. We'll have to give you a drone or something with a gun on the front.
I could do
Might
that
work.
probably. That I could do well.
Yeah. All right, final one. Elon Musk calls you up, offers you to test drive his new electric time machine. What do you do?
I mean, the automatic answer would be yes. The thing I need to consider or think of is whether I want to go back in back in the past or in the future.
Yeah,
Um, I'm more intrigued. I'm more intrigued by the past because then I would want to go to certain moments in history and actually understand why certain things have happened, or reach out to certain people and
yeah,
just have certain conversations. The future intrigues me as well, but I mean, if I'm assuming he's only going to give me one ride,
yeah.
and supposedly, I mean, if I don't die through the entire process, then yeah, one I'd rather not be too ambitious at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Well, that's the icebreakers done. So let's just dive in. We've got no real plan, but you wrote a book. Do you want to talk about that?
Yep. So back in like when I was back in university, I was or if I were to backtrack a bit more, growing up, I was extremely shy. I was extremely introverted. Barely speak to people. Just avoided everyone at any cost. Had a great family. Had a great upbringing, nonetheless. Like I wouldn't say I'm quite grateful for everything I've been through. But I was extremely shy, and I think when I got to university, and and just like I mentioned just a minute before, is I was quite the gamer. I lived my life inside of a computer screen, and that was a life that I really chose above anything else because it was quite easy. It was quite simple to do. Got into university. Started trying to break out of my shell a bit, and then I got into an organization that was a leadership focused organization, focused on developing leadership in young people through sending them to exchange to different countries to get to experience diversity and get to experience a lot of different things that don't really you wouldn't really come across in your day to day. Once I got in, just got a lot of opportunities to grow myself, to develop, to just engage with the world and see it differently. Got to travel, got to see the world, and I spent 8 years in that organization where started off as a member there, but then grew up to lead the entire organization, be the global president of it. And it's an organization that exists in 120 plus countries. And my final tenure there, I was leading over 40,000 young people, managing thousands as well. And that opportunity itself just completely transformed me as a person. And I just wanted to write about that. I just wanted to write about that experience, write about how you'd lead as an introvert, write about how that transformation has happened. I wanted to focus on that span of around 8 years, and wanted to give advice to people that initially, because my target audience was the people in this organization, but also trying to reach out to young people, trying to reach out to introverts. So I wrote a memoir, and memoir's name was Grayscale because I was trying to kind of convey the point of I think when I was younger, I was always looking at things always in black and white. I was always considering things as being right or wrong, or seeing a person as good or bad, or just like always seeing in extremes. And what I was trying to do, and what I got to see through my leadership experience, is the idea of seeing things in grayscale, of understanding that there are always a ton of praise that you're missing out on, And it really, really gets reflected in the way you lead and the way that you also go about your day to day. Wrote that, and uh, definitely. I mean, at that moment, I finished my tenure in the organization. I went in, I worked in technology because I'm technically a trained computer scientist. I just don't take much pride of it in it because I'm not really good at it because I never really were. I hated studying computer science and engineering growing up. Uh, but I took a year off, took it to write, took it to do coaching and whatnot. So it was quite the experience, and I was also mid-pandemic, so couldn't have been a better time to do so. And yeah, just like I said, the idea of writing just felt impossible. It felt like a dream. It felt like just when you think of a writer, right, the idea of writing, think of it, the idea of publishing, it just doesn't seem plausible,
Yeah.
at least when you're growing up. And then it turns out it is. And just got surprised by how much support there is out there, how much education there is out there, how many platforms that support your ability to put a book out there. And the reception was also great. Just like finding people who believe in you, finding people who are willing to give you a chance, or people who want to listen and hear what you've got to say. It's probably definitely the best decision, or one of the best decisions I've made in life. Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah. So how was the writing process for you? Did you find that easy, or was it a lot of, writer's block, or did you know exactly what you wanted to do?
What made it a lot easier was that I started off with just outlining everything. So I spent my first week doing nothing but putting, like, I think my bedroom was turned into this massive chartboard, and lots of charts hung around the world, around the wall, and a ton of charts on the ground, or flip charts, and like tons of markings, mind maps that are just extended across the entire floor. And then spent a ton of time on that, and then mapped everything out on my computer. So I had like my outline, had every single idea mapped out. And from that moment on, it was just about the consistency of writing. So building the habit of writing 1K a day, and just moving forward with it. And as soon as I had that, it became a lot easier, because for instance, I did the outlining, but then I traveled, because I did the outlining, and then I started writing, but then I traveled because I had a few things to do. And that was like in February 2020, and then I had to come back because I almost got stuck in I think it was in Montreal at that time. And then when I got back, that's when I really honed down and like just stuck on it and started writing the 1K words a day. And I think the good thing about it is just, even if you can't get through the 1K, just not losing the motivation. So I did have days where I wrote like 400 or 500 or 300 words. I just made sure I opened my Word doc and I just kept typing in. I had days where I wrote 2, 3, 5K. So it kind of varied. But did that, was the consistency of it. Went into the editing process. I think that was the most challenging afterwards. It's just getting an editor that's going to look at your work, and it's just the idea of getting someone who's going to look at your work as well. That was challenging. Initially, I made sure, because I was just reading a lot of resources out there, and I was making sure of the idea that I should not try and edit while I go. So like only edit after all it's done, because if I think both ways go, but I guess for me this one worked out because I think I'm also a perfectionist. So if I kept trying to edit as I go, every single chapter or every single page, I'm just never gonna get done with it. So didn't edit my book until it was all over. Got an editor who helped me out, but then after that editor was done, I then had a ton of other people who were helping me with editing, and it was like a never-ending process. At one point, I just had to stop. It was like, I just need to accept what I have, go for a final edit, stop taking input, because then I also got my beta readers in, and it was like more edits. And the thing is, at one point, it becomes like a lot of redundant editing, because it's not wrong, but just someone who's like, this editor likes it this way versus this editor who likes it this way. And it's like a ton of conflicting opinions. And at that moment, I just needed to stop. But got that done. Got the cover. Actually got my cousin, who's a great designer, to design my cover for me. So that was quite helpful. Got that, and then it was as simple as, because I was writing also on Scrivener, so it was as simple as go on Scrivener, get the formatting done for the paperback and for the ebook. It was quite simple actually, and press on publish, and Yeah, it took me around 3 to 4 months to write the book, and I definitely had moments of demotivation throughout, but I think the writer's block was kept at bay just because of the process of outlining. That
Yeah.
definitely helped a ton. Did you go about the same thing? Like how did you go about your writing
Oh well, no.
outline?
Well, my book was just for the listeners, it's called Letters from the Emu War, but it was just journal entries. So it's basically
Yeah,
I had a rough how big I wanted, how many pages I wanted. It like exceeded that, but it didn't really matter because it's a
that
small
always
book.
happens.
It's a small book, so it was basically just I had to research the whole because it's based on a true story. I had to research the whole event and timeline it because it was about 20,000 emus migrating to the west coast because there was no food. There was a drought, so they're looking for food. So I
Yeah.
had them going, "We're looking for food. There's food out here," and then
Mhm.
the timeline of when the Australian army rocked up and just started firing them with bullets, but couldn't kill them. Essentially,
Yeah.
yeah. So I just had to timeline it, and then I just wrote letters from five or six different characters in the
Yeah.
different time zones, and then it was definitely a fun process, but it was pretty tedious with the editing at the end and all that. But
Yeah.
I mean, I wrote it in 6 months, so I had a co-writer with me as well, so super easy. But it was the first time doing it. I did it all myself, and I learned a lot of things from my mistakes.
Yeah. You all do.
But yeah. So your book's called Grayscale, was it?
It's called Grayscale. Yep.
Yeah, and that's
Grayscale, memoir of an introvert. No, wait. Memoir of an introverted leader. Yeah.
that's the sequel.
Oh, I mean, you forgot my book's name or the subtitle at least. So not great.
That's all right. So we can get it. Is it on Amazon and all the hot spots? Is it?
Um, yeah, it's currently on Amazon. Yep.
Yeah, cool. Just for the listeners, in case they want to go buy it, we
Yeah.
highly recommend. If my co-host was here, he would buy it because every person we've interviewed so far, about 5 or 6 people, he's bought all their books. He's like,
Oh, really?
He's like, that sounds really good, and then off he goes, and he's like buying more books than I can read.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be happy with that. We didn't say no to it. The more people we know.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier that you're getting into entrepreneurship and you're starting a business kind of thing. Did you want to talk a bit about that?
Yep. So back in September, I moved to the UK with to work in a venture builder, basically, where I wanted to meet people that have similar interests and just want to kind of take the time and stop everything and just focus on building a company. Because I think from my struggles prior, I've always wanted to build a company. I always wanted to build certain things, but my problem was always finding the right people who are willing to invest the time to just basically put in the time and effort to build a company and just like leave an entire full-time job behind. But that was the struggle. So moved here, found 2 really great guys that we just clicked together. And then when we started considering the things we wanted to build together, things that we shared common interests in, it just the whole field and industry of writing and publishing and reading just popped up wide open and just made sense for the 3 of us. And starting working, I mean, we started playing within that field, and then what we've got into and what we just stuck to was the idea of how do you help writers write better books? How can we help? Like, I mean, from my experience as well, is like, how do you make that process easier? How to make their editing process easier? How do you just improve the entire process overall? We got to speaking to a lot of publishers and editors from good publishing firms. I mean, we've spoken to also like the publishers from Bloomsbury, and got like to see the experience as well, like Harry Potter back in the day as well, which was quite interesting. And from that, we just like also then kind of collaborated or worked with some work that has been done in the past in regards to kind of going deeper into the writing themselves. So like starting to analyze best-selling books. And what was found from that is that best-selling books do have certain characteristics do have certain patterns and trends that do not exist in others. And then that is the element where you start delving deep in an understanding as to what are those elements and trends that do exist in best-selling books that not exist in others. So what we decided to do is that we wanted to build a platform and wanted to build the way forward for writers that would help them start embedding those characteristics, patterns, trends inside of their own writing, so that they would have and would be in the end writing best-selling content in terms of the books. So we're currently working on building the algorithms, because at the very end of the day, it's a lot of like a techie stuff when it comes to like data science element, the machine learning that goes into that. But we're basically analyzing thousands of books, or analyzing best-selling books, we're analyzing non-best-selling books, and we're detecting and pulling out all the features within those books that would basically enable us to just know what is best-selling book versus what a non-best-selling book, and we want to be able to detect it. I mean, our goal at the moment is to detect with 90% accuracy the likelihood of a book to become a bestseller. So that's what we're working on at the moment. It's a lot of hard work when it comes to the AI bit, that's for sure. But it's been quite worth it. And what we've noticed is that from talking to editors and from talking to writers themselves and talking to publishers, the thing that's been quite interesting is that a lot of people would definitely think that technology is not like, I mean, a lot of people always deny the ability of technology of doing humans' work when it comes to the writing, because that's another problem, which is content generation, which is not what we're stepping into right at the moment, because we do acknowledge as well the creative element of writing. What we wanted to do was support the creative element by providing tools and tips, recommendations and insights at the very end of the day to help people. But what we've noticed is that those trends and patterns kind of happen naturally in an editor's mind. Like from our conversations with the editors, we've easily realized that they're kind of delving into a library inside of their brains that just got built over the years from the fact of them reading 30, 40 books a week and seeing and noticing those patterns. I've seen this in a thriller, I've seen this in a crime, and I know that a crime should be this amount of words, a crime should be this amount of pages, a crime that's the paragraph should be that way, that the character's development should happen in that direction, and kind of happens very subconsciously for them, that they don't even realize that those are patterns that truly exist. So that's where the refutation of that idea that patterns do exist happens. But from our conversations, even confirmed it further. And since then, we've just been working on that idea. So we've been also building a platform that would allow authors to basically just go and upload their manuscripts, and then accordingly just receive insights, recommendations. And that is going to be supplemented by the algorithms that are being built at the moment, so to give people more info, more insights, more recommendations. And it's definitely a long journey to go. But yeah, that's the gist of what we're working on.
Well, it sounds amazing. Just don't get too crazy with the AI, because we know what happens with that in the movies.
I mean, there are a ton of things that are already happening, like NaNoWriMo and stuff like that, where like there's the opportunity of writing through code and whatnot. And from speaking to writers, a lot of writers and a lot of editors as well are quite afraid from like AI taking over the profession. And I think that's one thing that should never be taken forward by AI, because at the very end of the day, it's a creative process, and writing is art. But I have seen great implementations of AI and great implementations of technology when it comes to helping with the writing. So, for instance, I know that there are some tools that already do provide the ability to generate content, but not generate a whole book for you. But like, for instance, you'd write a sentence and it could generate the next sentence for you to give you an idea, or generate the next paragraph for you, just to kind of beat that writer's block that you'd be facing. And I think that I think and believe is good implementation, because it doesn't take the power away from the writer, but it kind of helps them, it supports them, it improves their process. Those are things that I believe in, but I'd still, like me personally, I still wouldn't believe of AI that would write the full book. I think it's a cool exercise, but it's not exciting. It's not as exciting as the idea of reading a work that has been written by an actual person who's sitting down and like put in hours and months to actually get it done, or years as well.
Because when it's a real person, they can put the real emotion behind it. When the
Exactly.
AI will hunt for the emotion and go, oh yeah.
I mean, if looking back at your like your question of if Elon Musk were to give me a time machine, maybe one thing we'd do is like maybe go 100 years, 200 years from now, see if people still write books, or is it all, do people still read books at that point in
Yeah.
time? Maybe it's all going to be downloaded on a chip, like you'd have a Google inside of your head, so you don't really
Yeah.
need anything else. But that would be interesting to see, because
Yeah.
I believe that writing and reading is timeless. I don't think it's ever going to change. It's like it's been happening from the beginning of time.
Yeah.
And I don't think now with AI and technology, it's still going to change. It's always going to be there, but it's going to change in the ways that it happens. But it's always going to be people doing it. That's at least my belief.
Everyone wants to have a story to read. Everyone wants to have a story to tell. So
Exactly. Definitely.
yeah. So do you have like a website for your business, or
It's called reread.ai.
reread.ai? Cool.
Yeah, RE and then read. So read again. And from that, people will be able to access the platform. So they like redirect into the platform. They can sign up. Working on a couple of cool things at the moment because we're revamping our platform, integrating a lot of more actually insights and recommendations, and that's in the works at the moment. So definitely, I could even update you as soon as we launch the new thing as well. That'll be exciting as well, because we currently have a good number of users, but we want to bring in a lot more, and think that would become a lot more exciting as well, because a lot of newer features are going to be coming in soon.
Cool. Well, before we wrap it up, do you just want to give some general advice to people that want to or are thinking about publishing and writing their own book? Anything you've learned from the process?
Just like I said earlier, consistency. It's all about building that habit. You don't need to write 2, 3, 5K words a day.
Yeah.
I think 1K or even 500 words a day is enough, as long as you keep that habit. That was the key for me, just getting a book out there. I think the other piece of advice is just don't try to depend on too many people to feed back your book. I think you definitely, because I've also seen, one thing I've seen is that there are a lot of people that do not believe in bringing in external editors, or a lot of people just prefer to edit their books. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I just believe that you definitely need a different set of eyes to look at your book, no matter who you are. I think you could be one of the greatest writers out there, but even the greatest writers out there still have beta readers. They still have editors, because no matter how good you are, it's always going to be your work. It's always going to be your baby. It's always going to be a thing that you've written yourself. You're never going to be able to look at it with a critical eye. So I think definitely find someone. If you don't want to hire an editor, find people, friends. Friends, but also if you can also find people who are not friends, because what I've also noticed and what I've seen from my own experience is that when I was having, for instance, family members read my book, beta read my book, they definitely felt they couldn't give me as critical feedback as externals. That was very valid, and I couldn't blame them for it. It's just they were worried about how I'm going to take it, which is, in any creative pursuit, it's always hard to give. The thing about like designers being hard, and when you give them feedback and all of that, it's true, because it's hard when in creativity. It's always hard because it's you feel when your work gets criticized, you feel like you're personally criticized, although that's not the reality. But we as human beings, me personally, that's what happens. But just get a second pair of eyes to look at your work. Get a couple. Don't go overboard by getting hundreds, because that's when you kind of get overwhelmed. So just maintain that number. Ideally, try and find someone that you trust as well. To me, it always helped the idea. I think it's probably pretty popular, which I got from just Stephen King's On Writing. Is just always know the ideal reader that you're writing for. So always, kind of envision inside of your head while you're writing that you're writing for that one person, or that one group of people, no matter who it is. And that always helped me when it came to writing, is just having that ideal reader in mind as I wrote, because that made my writing a lot more to the point and more directed to my ideal audience, or my target audience as well. Another piece of advice, I know that a lot of people as well enjoy writing on Word, or enjoy writing on just MS Doc, or just on Google Docs, or like, I personally really loved writing using tools to help me with the process in terms of structuring. And just like I mentioned, I was using Scrivener. I think what I liked about it is just it helped me with the process of structuring my book, like beyond process of just the structuring as I go and just keeping things properly configured and throughout. But it was the formatting of the book at the very end of the process. It even saved me money from having to hire someone to format my book, because I know that's something that people have to do at the end of the day. I enjoyed that. It just made writing more fun. It made it seem like it's more than it is. It made it seem like it's a more techie thing. So like, which kind of integrated with my background as well. The final thing is, if you're writing a book, then you just need to keep reading in that genre, because you need to understand how it's better written. One of the reasons I wrote a memoir is because I love memoirs. Like I one of the I think the biggest genre I read is memoirs, because I just find them enjoyable. I like reading about people's lives. I like understanding how people went about things. I like to read their challenges, and I like the style of what I love about memoirs is that they're not nonfiction, but they're not fiction either. They're a mixture of both. It's a combination, because it's nonfiction that's got elements of fiction, so it makes the reading more fun than just reading a pure nonfiction self-help book versus reading fiction. So you're getting the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
So read in your genre, because that's only going to empower you to write better. We could go on for a while. I think, those are some of the thoughts that are in my
just
head.
go to reread.ai.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's mostly it, I think.
Well, thanks so much for coming on, Mo. You're welcome to come back anytime you want.
I'd love to, definitely.
And even when your business is big and booming, I'm sure I'll gather a lot more listeners by then, and they'd love to learn a bit more. So thank you.
Definitely. I'll reach out then. But thank you for the call as well. It's quite interesting. And could you remind me of the name of your book again?
Letters of the Emu War. So like
Letters of the Emu War.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll send you a link after if you want.
Oh, perfect. Okay, yeah, that's better. That's gonna be easier, definitely. Okay, I'll check it out then.
No worries.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
See ya. Hey, thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, please remember to hit like, subscribe, and share. And if you're after some more interesting content, then please check out our podcast, Stories, the True and the Fictional. And lastly, if Emu's writing war correspondence sounds like something that you'd be into, then please grab a copy of my book, Letters from the Emu War, based on a true story. You can find it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Fishpond, and many, many, many more.